I drained my savings account of over 2 decades, took out a second mortgage on the house, even put my car up as collateral just to lift my daughter all the way into the Ivy League, from undergrad to her master's degree. But 3 months after landing her first job, she snapped at me. She accused me of being irresponsible for not buying her an apartment in the city. Over the phone, she shrieked, "People like you shouldn't have kids. If you can't even afford a condo, what right did you have to be a parent?" She hung up before I could respond. Still stunned, I opened Instagram. The first post that popped up was hers. She was posing in Central Park with a limited edition Chanel handbag dangling from her wrist. The caption read, "Lesson 1 of adulthood. Learn to treat yourself well." That line stabbed me in the eyes, and then it sank straight into my chest. For over 20 years, I worked myself to the bone, pulling double shifts, covering night duty, juggling 2 jobs to raise her right. But tell me, who ever treated me well? Was I nothing more than the step stool she climbed on to become who she is today? So I decided, starting today, I'm going to treat myself well regardless of what. I retired early at 57. After decades of working night shifts at a community hospital in Pittsburgh, I finally clocked out for the last time. Heather had just graduated from Columbia University. She sent me a text with a screenshot of her job offer. She'd landed an intern position at a foreign firm in Manhattan. She told me the pay was pretty fine if later she can secure the position after the internship. I sat there at the kitchen table, tears welling up in my eyes. I thought, I made it. As a single mother, I'd pulled through alone, but standing. When Heather was 10, I couldn't take the beatings from that abusive ex anymore. I packed our things, took her by the hand, and walked away from the man who hit us. We started over from scratch. Since then, every dollar I made, every decision I took, was for her. Her future was the only thing I ever prioritized. Now, I had a modest apartment, a used car, and a decent retirement fund. For once, I could finally breathe. Maybe do something for myself. I'd always wanted to drive west, see the waterfalls in the national parks. Go all the way from this small town to Yosemite. It was my dream back when I still had dreams. I was about to tell her all this, when she cut me off. "Mom, I've decided to settle down on the Upper East Side. I want to buy an apartment there. Can you help me with the down payment?" I froze. Upper East Side, that's Manhattan real estate royalty. Who can afford that? I hesitated. "How much are we talking?" She answered like it was no big deal. 300 grand should cover the down payment. After that, I can handle part of the mortgage. If you help out with the rest. I sucked in a breath. 300,000. Do you even know how much I have? You told me you had close to 150 grand in your account, she replied. Sell your apartment in Pittsburgh, and that should do it. If there's anything left over, keep it for yourself. For a moment, I genuinely thought I'd misheard her. Where would I live? Are you saying I should move in with you? Of course not, she said quickly. You've got some savings. And your retirement checks. You could rent a small place. Maybe a 1-bedroom. It's not like you need much. My fingers started to tremble. Something inside Mimi Center maybe felt like it had caved in. Decades of thrift and sacrifice. All the money I had painstakingly saved. And in her eyes, it was just starter fuel, more kindling to burn for her launch. I clenched my jaw to keep my voice steady, but it still shook. Heather, you want me to sell my home, hand over everything I've saved, just to cover your down payment, and then spend the rest of my life renting? I raised you without ever asking for anything in return, and now you're looking straight at my retirement money. I thought she'd be embarrassed, maybe feel a flicker of shame, but Heather's voice sharpened instead, like I'd hit a nerve. So what? You had me so I'd owe you something forever. I didn't ask to be born. If you don't have the money or the resources, don't drag a kid into the world. Do you know how deprived I felt growing up? Everyone else had the newest phones, I didn't. I had to skip meals just to afford a pair of Jordans. You think that didn't scar me? Poor people shouldn't have kids. Her voice got louder and louder, as if she needed the noise to drown out whatever guilt she didn't want to feel. Or maybe she really believed the world owed her everything she didn't get. On the screen, her face was twisted with emotion, and I couldn't recognize her anymore. Where was the little girl who used to rub my back after school, promising to be my little angel, when she grew up? I tried one last time to reach her. Heather, do you really believe I didn't do enough for you? Remember when you wanted piano lessons? I hired a tutor. You begged to join that summer program. I picked up a second job. You craved steak from that fancy bistro I saved up and waited in line with you for a table. Did all that mean nothing to you? My voice was barely audible now, caught in my throat. But she didn't flinch. That's what you were supposed to do. You're my mom, right? Don't act like you deserve a medal. If I was miserable or resentful, it's because you weren't capable. Other people's parents, they buy houses for their kids. They give them cars. And you retire at 57 and think you get to enjoy life. My friends' moms are still teaching college courses in their 60s to help their kids buy property. And you're what tired? She fired each word like a bullet. By the end of it, I felt buried under rubble. I opened my mouth to speak, but the line went dead. Just a flat, indifferent beep. I stared at the screen. The silence around me was deafening. Only the sound of rain tapping against the window, and my own heartbeat, growing colder by the second. The last real conversation I had with Heather was on her birthday last week. I texted her early that morning just a simple, happy birthday, sweetheart, and wired her $1,000, thinking she could treat herself to a nice dinner, maybe pick out a little gift. She replied with a sticker, a blushing cartoon bunny, winking and hugging a heart. I stared at that sticker for a long while. For a split second, it reminded me of the Heather I used to know, the one from over a decade ago. She was such a soft, sweet child, clingy in the best way. She'd curl up in my lap, insist I read her the same story twice before she could fall asleep. Back then, I truly believed that as long as she was safe, as long as she grew up strong and happy, no sacrifice on my part would ever feel too much. But now, looking at that virtual bunny on the screen, I felt a strange sense of distance. It was cute but unfamiliar, hollow. When did that little bunny wander so far from me? Was it me who changed, got too old, too out of touch with her world? Had I retired not just from work, but from relevance? With those thoughts spinning in my head, I tapped open Heather's Instagram. She updated constantly nearly every day. A new photo, a new outfit, a new caption. I scrolled without thinking, until one fresh post caught my eye. Timestamp, 3 minutes ago. There she was, standing on the sidewalk along Fifth Avenue, wearing a pristine white dress and sky-high heels, a popular Chanel purse slung over her shoulder. I recognized it instantly. It had been featured in a fashion spread I skimmed once. Retail price, starts at $6,000. The caption read, Lesson 1 of Adulthood. Spend your money on yourself. Treat yourself well. I stared at that line for a long time, like I'd forgotten how to read. Spend your money on yourself. What was that supposed to mean? Was she saying she was finally self-sufficient now, supporting herself? I kept scrolling, down to the comments section. Living your best life, Queen. That bag is Eviarish and Gerd. It's been sold out forever unless you know someone. And now it's yours. Iconic. Wait, you just started working and already got a Chanel. How? Hook us up with your sales girl. My fingers clenched around the phone. How did she afford it? How else? Heather was barely out of grad school, still interning as a junior associate. Her monthly pre-tax salary barely cleared $5,000. After paying for that overpriced one-bedroom in Manhattan, food, commuting, just life, there was no way she could save a dime. That bag, that dress, those Jimmy Choos. I did the math in my head, and there was only one possible source for all that luxury. The money she'd quietly siphoned from me. After she graduated, the job market hit her hard. She was fragile, unstable. Once, at 3 a.m., she called sobbing, asking if her life had any worth at all. I was terrified she'd hurt herself, so I stepped in. Every month during that rough patch, I sent her $500, just until she landed something steady. She thanked me at the time, even promised she'd stop asking once she had her footing. But within weeks of starting her job, the requests returned softened, casual. Mom, I haven't figured out my fall wardrobe. Mom, I'm planning a little trip to Napa with friends just a bit over budget. Mom, our dinner plans changed last minute. The new place is a hike, need a bit more for transit. Each time, the ask was light. Each time, I didn't think too hard. I still had money in my account. I lived alone. I wasn't spending much. And really, who was I saving it for? If not her, what's a couple hundred here or there? But now, watching her flaunt her self-reliance on screen, something cold pressed against my chest. I looked down at myself. I was wearing a faded t-shirt from a Costco sale, canvas sneakers that cost $10 at the grocery store, and carrying a straw tote I found at a local flea market. I looked like an extra shuffled off the stage. She looked like an influencer bathed in studio lighting. I kept scrolling through her feed. Burberry trench, Dior sunglasses, Tiffany pendant. None of it remotely within reach for someone just starting out. One commenter asked, "Is your mom like old money rich or something?" She replied, "Not at all. My mom's just a regular nobody. More importantly, I've never depended on anyone." I actually laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind that catches in your throat and leaves a taste behind. You've never depended on anyone. Did it ever cross your mind who was there at 4 a.m. every morning, running trauma shifts in the ER, only to show up hours later at your school for parent-teacher meetings, who turned every penny into something you could wear, eat, use to earn into dignity? You say you're finally treating yourself well. But did it ever occur to you that the person who needs treating, the one who never once lived for herself, might be your mother? I sat on my old sofa, staring up at the ceiling, my chest burning with something that had no name, only heat. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. Just burn. That night, I didn't sleep a minute. The next morning, just as I stepped out of the kitchen with a fresh cup of coffee, my phone lit up. It was a text from Heather. "Mom, I'm sorry. I went a little overboard yesterday. Don't be mad. Okay." She'd added a laughing crying emoji and another one her usual, a cartoon bunny leaping into a hug. I stared at that little bunny for a while, and a memory surfaced. Heather as a child, clinging to me, pouting until I gave in. Back then, all it took was her saying sorry no matter how cruel her words had been, and I'd melt. Like a slow-cooked pot roast. One touch and I'd fall apart. But today, I don't know why, I felt nothing. I replied, "Got it. I'm not mad." Just 5 flat words, dry as the brittle leaves blowing down the sidewalk. I slipped the phone into my pocket, picked up a canvas tote, and headed to the market. I wandered the aisles and bought 2 fillets of sea bass, a bundle of fresh asparagus, a box of strawberries, and in a Weimar bottle of imported extra virgin olive oil I usually deemed too indulgent. At checkout, I ran into Marcia, the neighborhood gossip. She glanced at my cart and raised an eyebrow. Well, Evelyn," she grinned. "All these goodies, Heather coming home for dinner, planning something special?" Without looking up, I said, "Nope, just cooking for myself." Her brow arched higher, her smile teasing. "You, treating yourself? Since when?" I looked her in the eye and raised the bag a little higher. "After working this hard and finally retiring, you're telling me I can't eat well? Do I have here to serve others stamped on my forehead?" She let out a laugh. Okay, you've got a point. I'm just surprised. You never used to spend a dime on yourself. Now all of a sudden you're living a little." I had to be nosy. I gave a half smile, but didn't feel like continuing the conversation. Just then, my phone rang. Heather again. I waved at Marcia. "Gotta go. Something at home." I walked out of the store without looking back. Once I was home and the door was shut behind me, I answered the call. "Mom, you've been ignoring my messages." That sugary, sticky tone in her voice, I knew it well. It always came right before she asked for something. In the past, it worked. Every time. I cleared my throat, deliberately cooling my tone. "I was out shopping. Didn't hear it. What's up?" There was a pause. Then, hesitantly, she said, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I'm thinking of taking some time off next month. A little Europe trip with some friends. Just to relax, and I was wondering, could you maybe help out with the travel costs?" I didn't respond right away. My eyes drifted toward the framed photo on the living room wall. Heather's first birthday. I was holding her in my arms. Back then, she didn't want to be anywhere but with me. The moment I disappeared from sight, she'd cry like the world was ending. And now, the first person she thought to take on vacation was a friend. Not her mother. "You're 25, Heather," I said slowly. "You can't keep turning to me for money every time something comes up. You have your life. And now, I'd like to have mine. I'm planning a road trip next month. Gonna hit a few national parks. Finally do that cross-country drive I've always talked about. It's going to cost a bit, so this time, you'll have to manage on your own. I worked my whole life. Waited until you graduated. Now I'd like to start being kin to myself." There was silence on the other end. For a moment, I hoped maybe she'd say, "You're right, Mom. You deserve it." But no, her voice snapped back. High-pitched and sharp. "What, you're going on a trip? Alone? Are you serious? You're not young anymore. You should be resting at home, not gallivanting across the country. What if something happens? Guess we'll have to deal with it then." Her voice picked up speed, her tone rising. If you've got money to waste on that, why not save it and help me with a down payment? Wouldn't that be more secure for both of us? I felt a pounding behind my eyes. I raised my hand and cut her off. Enough. I'm only 57, not 97. I can still hike mountain trails and run a 10K. You're 25 and already complain about stairs. I can take care of myself. And for the record, the money I earned, I'll spend it how I damn well please. And if anything does happen, I'll hire a nurse. I won't be your problem. Before she could respond, I hung up. Even one more second of that conversation felt like a waste of air. The screen went dark. For the first time in days. The house was quiet, but this quiet didn't come with hope or disappointment. It came with something heavier, deeper, a quiet, steady decision sinking into my bones. I would no longer sacrifice myself for anyone. That call from Heather ruined my whole morning. But oddly enough, I didn't feel devastated. Not like before. No expectations, no disappointments. It wasn't that I suddenly let it go. I simply saw it clearly now. I'd spent most of my life cast in the role of someone who's needed. By a child, by a family, by the idea of being a good woman. I never stopped to ask what I needed. But now, I wanted a different life. We don't live for children, for family, or for some title. We live, first and foremost, for ourselves. So I began learning how to please me. I made a reservation at a Michelin-starred restaurant downtown, wore a new dress I'd been saving for some occasion, sat by the window alone, and ordered a steak and a glass of chilled white wine. I booked an appointment at an upscale Spaffle Body essential oil massage, hot stones, deep tissue, aromatherapy, all of it. For the first time in 57 years, I lay on a lavender-scented bed, eyes closed, thinking about nothing. I even visited the Community Arts Center and sat for a full portrait session. I wore a deep burgundy silk tunic, pinned my hair up high, and swiped on a red lipstick I'd always been too afraid to try. The photographer looked at me and said, "For your age, you've got such presence. That's honestly badass." I nearly laughed out loud. I didn't care whether I looked badass. What mattered to me was that, for once, I had a photo where my smile wasn't for anyone else. Just me. Then I started checking off the little dreams I never had the nerve to name when I was younger. I researched how to outfit a car for long-distance travel navigation apps, portable fridges, national park passes. I learned how to plan road trips on Google Maps, joined a Facebook group for retired women drivers. It was filled with women in their 60s and 70s, roaming the country in campers, thriving. I gave myself a new social handle, Auntie Ev on the road. I drove winding roads through Ohio, through tunnels in West Virginia, pitched a tent beside the riverbanks of Tennessee. I took video clips along the way and edited them into short, breezy reels with soft music and simple captions. At first, nobody watched. My shots were shaky. Framing was off. I forgot to plug in the mic more times than I'll admit. But I didn't care. I wasn't filming to go viral. I was filming to leave behind proof. Proof that, for the first time in my life, I was living for me. And then came the Yosemite video. I was standing by a lookout, mist from the falls brushing my face. Holding up my phone, I spoke into the camera. First time seeing Yosemite Falls. I'm 57. Is that too late? I didn't expect much. But the video took off. Likes, comments, shares hundreds, then thousands, then more. They poured in like a flood. I was 42 the first time I got on a plane. Never too late. I learned to order takeout from mobile app at 65. Life doesn't start on a schedule. My grandma just learned PayPal this year and used it to win Black Friday deals. Sitting in my foldable chair outside the tent, I scrolled through comment after comment. And quietly, my eyes filled with tears. I wasn't alone. There were others, like me, who were finally discovering what it meant to live free. Even if that freedom came late. In those voices, I heard the echo of a forgotten tribe. Ordinary women like me, finally stepping into the light. After that, I started taking my channel more seriously. I learned how to edit properly, add subtitles, use a tripod, improve my camera angles. Little by little, my content started to look polished. Within a month, my account had over 100,000 followers. Some videos hit over 1 million views. Even a few brands reached out. They wanted to collaborate on lifestyle campaigns for older women. I never imagined that at my age. I'd stumble into a brand new way to earn a living. And even more surprising, that there would be strangers out there, willing to stop, listen, and see me. Turns out, 57 can be a beginning. That day, I happened to arrive at Yosemite National Park. The morning air still carried the chill of the mountains, and sunlight was just beginning to peek through the pine trees. It also happened to be my 58th birthday. To be honest, I had never really celebrated a birthday that belonged just to me. When I was a child, my parents would prepare cakes, or at least a happy meal for my younger siblings on their birthdays. But on mine, it was just another day. No mention. No one remembered. I used to think they had simply forgotten. Later, I realized they never even considered it. Eventually, I started to forget the date myself. My birthday became the most ordinary day of the year. Nothing more. It wasn't until Heather came along that I started caring about birthdays hers. That is, every year, I'd turn it into a full production. Homemade cake, hand-picked gifts, dinner parties with her friends, photos taped to the wall, balloons in every color I could afford. I made it feel like a real occasion. I tried to pour all the joy and care I never got as a child into her celebration. As if, through her, I could rewrite what I'd missed. And every time I stood in the kitchen watching those kids sing happy birthday to her, I'd wipe the corners of my eyes, not out of pride, but for the little girl who never had anyone sing to her. But now, I didn't want someone else to throw me a party. Real celebration, I've learned, is being honest with yourself, being kind to yourself, and no longer shrinking in the hope someone might finally remember you. So this year, I gave myself a gift, to see the sunrise over Yosemite's peaks with my own eyes. The night before, I posted on Instagram, leaving at 5:45 a.m. to watch my first ever mountain sunrise. The comments came in fast. Bundle up, that mountain wind cuts deep. Don't go too early this time of year, 6 o'clock is perfect. Auntie Ev, don't forget to take pretty photos for us. I was replying to them one by one when a notification popped up with a familiar username. Heather. Her comment read, Mom, you're going to see the sunrise and didn't tell me. Instantly, the comment section exploded. Wait, this is Auntie Ev's daughter. I've followed this girl for months. Your daughter. What kind of iconic mother-daughter duo is this? One's in NYC wearing couture. The other's chasing sunrises in national parks. Dream collab. Total win-win. A mom who's a walking poem, and a daughter who's camera-ready every day. I was about to ignore it to avoid stirring up too much buzz, but then a text popped up from Heather. Mom, which hotel are you at? I'm coming over. Let's watch the sunrise together. Okay. I stared at that message for a long time. You're in California. I typed back. Yup, I saw your post and bought a last-minute ticket. I can help you shoot videos too. I just wanted to watch the sunrise with you. Is that so wrong? Or, are you still mad at me? My eyes locked onto that one sentence. Are you still mad at me? Was I to say I didn't feel anything that would be a lie? Did she remember it was my birthday? Or was this just a convenient way to ride the wave of my rising online attention? I couldn't be sure. Still, I sent her my hotel location. Not even an hour later, someone knocked at the door. I opened it. There she was, Heather, sunglasses on, dragging her carry-on, grinning like it was some great surprise. Mom, no hug for me. I flew all this way just to see you. I let out a soft smile and took her bag. What are you doing here? I thought you had that Europe trip with your friends. She wrapped her arms around mine, clinging like a child. My friends are chill. Plans changed. Can I spend time with you instead? I nodded, quietly. Then she unzipped her suitcase. Right there in the room plopped a camera, a lightweight tripod, and a handful of accessories onto the coffee table. Look how prepared I am. Tomorrow, I promise, we'll get some real shots. I blinked. You brought all this just to help me take pictures. She smiled mischievously. That's not all. I've got another surprise. You'll see tomorrow. Her smile was radiant, almost too bright. But deep down, I felt an unease I couldn't name. I looked at her, and the question sat on the edge of my tongue. Did you remember it's my birthday? But I swallowed it. Because not asking meant I didn't have to hear the answer that might hurt. Life, it seemed, had no more surprises to offer. Whatever quiet hope had flickered in me when Heather arrived, it faded quickly. From the moment we left the hotel, she was relentless, directing every step like a film set, telling me what to wear, where to stand, how to smile. Make sure the pine's on your left and the ridge lines in frame on the right. She barked out instructions like a director losing daylight. All I'd wanted was to stand quietly among the trees, breathe the air, and celebrate my birthday with nature. Instead, I became background footage for her content. I'd told her from the start. I don't use lighting. I don't do editing. I don't filter. And I definitely don't read scripted lines. But she insisted, her voice syrupy with forced charm. Come on, just this one little line. Say it with me. Hi everyone, I'm Auntie Ev. Today we're exploring the world-famous Yosemite National Park. I stopped in my tracks. Do I seriously have to recite something you wrote? I came here to see the mountains, not to play puppet in your promo reel. She pouted, dragging the word out. Please, just one tiny take. I swallowed the tightness rising in my chest, bit back the irritation, and complied. We shot, res hot, climbed, crouched, turned, and adjusted. By the time we reached the sunrise lookout, I was exhausted. The sun crested over the mountains, casting golden light across the cliffs and trees. It should have been my moment, a quiet, glowing celebration. Instead, all I felt was worn out and hollow. I slumped onto a nearby bench and opened Instagram. Heather had already posted. Sunrise with Mom, another bucket list moment checked off. 12 photos. 10 were portraits of her in soft dawn light, posed like a model mid-campaign. One was a shot I'd taken of her. One was of the mountains. Not a single mention that it was my birthday. Not one photo of us together. Not even a line that acknowledged I existed beyond being a helpful camera operator. The warmth I'd felt under the rising sun was smothered by the cold of that caption. And then she nudged me. That sweet voice charm back on. Mom, post your update too. Tag me, so I can repost it. I rubbed my temples. I just wanted to get it over with. She airdropped several photos to Meher. Her, and more of her. Here, these are the best ones. Just use them all. For the caption, I was thinking. I cut her off, sharper than I meant to. My account's for me. Mostly nature shots. If you want to post photos of yourself, do it on your own page. Her smile froze. Mom, come on, I literally mentioned you in mine. I looked at her. Flat and cold. Feel free to delete it. I don't care. Her tone softened immediately, almost pleading. Mom, you're the best. Okay, just this once. You've got almost 300K followers. I'm not even at 100K yet. Can't you help me just this once? I didn't respond. I posted my own photo, wrote a simple caption, and locked my phone. Then I looked up at her and said, evenly, you want help? Let's tally it up. I've taken over 100 photos of you today. I set up your tripod, blocked the wind so your hair wouldn't frizz. Hiked that entire trail on knees that click every time I move. I'm nearly 60 and I dragged myself up a mountain for your content. That's not enough. She stared at me, stunned. It's just a post. Why are you acting like this? You never used to be like this. No, I used to be someone who never asked for anything. That's why you treat me like a prop, just a pair of hands and a background. You know what? I'm tired. I sat back on the bench and closed my eyes. After the sun rose fully, we lingered a bit, but the mood was brittle. She asked once, twice, to go back to those boulders for a few more shots. I half-heartedly climbed up once, gave her a few angles, then told her I was done. We barely spoke on the way back. She walked ahead, quick-footed and silent. I trailed behind, clutching my coat against the wind, each gust filling my ears with cold. The only sounds were pine branches swaying and gravel crunching underfoot. And honestly, I was more exhausted from this morning than I'd been after a week of solo travel. Back in the hotel room, she shoved her suitcase across the floor hard, deliberate, dramatic, like she was waiting for me to come soothe her, like always. I took off my coat and collapsed onto the couch, exhaling every ounce of strength I had left. She stood at the door, arms crossed, scowling. Then, without a word, she grabbed her suitcase and slammed the door behind her. I didn't chase her. I didn't say goodbye. I just watched the door ease shut. A few minutes later, there was a knock. I assumed it was housekeeping. But when I opened it, there she was, Heather. Eyes uncertain. Mouth tight with something between defiance and regret. What are you doing back? I asked. She shifted her weight, lips trembling slightly. Mom, she whispered. Why didn't you tell me it was your birthday today? I didn't answer. Just looked up at the ceiling light and said quietly, what difference would it have made? Whether you remembered or not, doesn't matter anymore. I'm 58. You stop expecting that kind of thing after a while. Mom, she reached out and grabbed my hand. To get you a gift. Come with me. Before I could protest, she pulled me along down the street to a tiny photo studio tucked between shops. Outside were racks of flashy costumes, cheap, tacky fabrics, some stained with dirt. A sign on the wall read, "Themed portraits starting at 19.99. Heather gestured proudly. "Pick any outfit you like." My treat. That "my treat" landed sharp in my ears, loud, deliberate, like she wanted everyone around to hear. I said nothing, just scanned the backdrop, the studio logo positioned perfectly behind her as she posed. She turned to the clerk, whispering about angles and packages. I quietly pulled out my phone and opened her profile. 3 days ago, she'd posted about gifting a friend a 3000 Tiffany necklace. There were cozy photos of the two of them. The caption, "Forever Soulmates." The studio owner smiled at me. "Your daughter's so sweet. Not every girl would bring her mom for a portrait shoot." I lifted my phone and said, calmly, she gifted her friend a $3,000 Tiffany necklace and brought her mother to take 19.99 novelty photos. She says it's for my birthday. Let's be honest, it's for content. It's for bringing more spotlight on herself. I'm just the background. Again. Heather froze. The hanger in her hand clattered to the floor. Her face crumpled, caught between shame and disbelief. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her lips trembled, and I saw the words struggling to come, but choking in her throat. The clerk awkwardly looked away, suddenly finding the counter very interesting. I didn't wait. I rolled my eyes, turned, and walked out the door. "Mom, Mom," she called after me, but I didn't turn back. That was the moment I finally understood what it meant to go cold all the way through. The first thing I did when I got back to my home in Pittsburgh was schedule an appointment with a lawyer. I was ready to establish a foundation, not for applause, not for prestige, but because something had finally clicked into place. If my hard-earned money was only going to be drained by someone who saw me as a bottomless ATM, I'd rather give it to girls who actually wanted a chance at something more. I signed the paperwork for the trust, EC Women's Education Trust, dedicated to funding scholarships, living stipends, and digital learning tools for young women in underserved areas. Then I met with a notary and finalized my will. In black and white, it stated, upon my death, all my assets, property, savings, investment returns would go to the foundation. I knew Heather wouldn't take this lying down. Sure enough, a few days later, she stormed in from New York, the front door slamming open behind her. She didn't even take a breath before launching into me. "Mom, what the hell is this supposed to mean?" I was just setting a fresh pot of tea on the table. I didn't look up. What's supposed to mean? I asked calmly. "You've got money to set up some bullshit charity, but not enough to help me with a down payment. Are you even pretending I'm your daughter anymore?" I placed the teacup down without spilling a drop, then met her eyes squarely. "If you weren't my daughter, I wouldn't have worked night shifts for decades to put you through Columbia. I wouldn't have drained every ounce of energy to give you the best life I could. And even after you graduated and got a job, I kept sending you support every month. Or have you forgotten that too? I've fulfilled my duty as a mother. You're an adult now. How I choose to spend my money from this point on, that's my right. You don't get a vote." She let out a laugh, sharp, humorless, full of venom. She nodded slowly, her lips curled with disdain. "Fine. You want it that way. Don't expect me to come crawling back later. As far as I'm concerned, you don't have a daughter anymore." I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes for a moment, letting out a bitter breath. Maybe that's exactly what I need to finally have some peace. She slammed the door on her way out. It echoed down the hallway. I didn't follow her. I didn't try to explain. But when the house finally fell silent again, my chest felt like it was pinned under a stone. Of course it hurt. 27 years of raising someone, watching them grow, loving them in 1,000 quiet, thankless ways. And with one sentence, they sever you. Even when you've prepared yourself, it still stings like a fresh wound. But what I didn't expect was her revenge. The next morning, I opened my phone and found my Instagram buried under a tidal wave of comments, hundreds, maybe thousands. They came fast and ugly. "You selfish old woman. What are you even alive for? Your daughter works her ass off and you throw your money at strangers to boost your ego. Being a parent takes more than feeding someone. You think that makes you noble. She's not a mother. She's a manipulative actress who cares more about her image than her own child." At first, I thought someone had tagged the wrong account. Then I traced the comments back and opened Heather's latest post. A long captioned essay. Title: When Your Mother Only Loves Her Public Image. The photo was a moody, backlit shot of her staring into the sunset. Soft filters. Dramatic framing. But the words, they were knives. each one thrown with precision. She wrote about struggling to survive in New York, overwhelmed by rent, eating instant noodles, pulling all-nighters at work. She wrote about me refusing to help her buy a home, then bragging about some education fund, like I was saving the world. She wrote that I'd always cared more about the daughters of strangers than the one I gave birth to, that every sacrifice I made for her over the years wasn't love, but a form of control. Her followers took it and ran. This kind of mom is terrifying. If you want to be generous, don't have kids. Let someone else be your PR campaign. You're amazing. Girl, your kindness deserves better than this so-called family. I almost laughed. She didn't mention the time I nearly collapsed from exhaustion, but still rushed to her ballet class with snacks and water. Or the nights I skipped dinner, so she could have lunch money during her study abroad semester. Now, I was the villain. A cold, controlling narcissist obsessed with appearances. If strangers had said those things, I wouldn't have blinked. They don't know me. But this was crafted, word for word, by the very child I had poured my life into. I sat frozen at the table, my thumb moving numbly over the flood of cruel comments, each one twisting like a knife. The little girl who once clung to my arm and sobbed herself to sleep now sliced me open with hashtags. She didn't just forget what I gave her. She repackaged me into something ugly and fed me to a crowd. And in that moment, I wasn't angry. I was just cold. Not the kind of cold that comes with rage, but the kind that settles in when the last spark inside you goes out. When even the pain is numb. For a while, everything felt pointless. Not angry. Not hurt. Just empty. I opened my Instagram one last time and posted a short statement announcing a break. No accusations. No melodrama, just a calm account of what had happened, and a quiet rebuttal of Heather's twisted claims. Whether people believed me or not, that was their business. When I hit the post button, it felt like I had quietly shut the last open door between myself and the noise of the world. And once I stepped away from social media, life suddenly felt peaceful again. I no longer obsessed over every comment. No more stress about whether a video would hit 100,000 views. No more agonizing over titles packed with emotional bait just to earn a like. I kept traveling, heading west on the interstates. But this time, the photos I took, the videos I edited, they weren't for public view. I shared them privately, with people who actually knew me. They left comments like, "Eve, that hair color looks amazing on you. Your shot of the Grand Canyon could be a postcard. You're making me want to drop everything and just drive." Some didn't say anything, just a quiet little heart emoji. I knew some of them were envious, maybe even a little bitter. They were still suffocating under their sons' mortgage payments, or buried in childcare for daughters who dropped off the grandkids without a second thought. Still arguing over 3.99 onions with a husband who left his dirty socks everywhere. That was their life. I had chosen another. I'd stood by Yellowstone's hot springs, heard the roar of Niagara, driven alone through snow-blanketed Rocky Mountain roads. And while the landscapes left me in awe, what moved me most was this simple truth. I got to choose where I went next. Then one day, a call came in from an unknown number. It was a director from Los Angeles. "I saw your story online," he said. "We want to adapt it into a series. Would you be open to licensing your rights?" I froze. After we hung up, I reopened the Instagram account I hadn't touched in months. To my surprise, the tone beneath my old posts had shifted completely. "Auntie, I'm so sorry. I misunderstood you. She really made up that story. You were the one who gave everything. I can't believe you traveled alone, started a foundation, lived so boldly. You're incredible." Turns out, Heather had finally imploded. During a live stream, her carefully curated image fell apart. People who knew her in real life came forward. Turns out she was barely earning $5,000 a month, up to her ears in credit card debt, still buying designer handbags on borrowed money. Even worse somehow, our old text messages leaked. My midnight check-ins. Her cold responses. "You could sell the house if you really wanted to. Stop being so stingy." That's when the tide turned. Suddenly, the internet saw the truth. I wasn't the controlling mother with a savior complex. I was the woman who had quietly carried the weight and been torn down for it. She wasn't the oppressed daughter. She was an adult who never learned to stop taking. And me. I became Auntie Evelyn. The woman who broke free. The one who redefined what it meant to be a mother and what it meant to live. The director offered generous terms. The licensing fee and on-screen compensation were more than enough to pour a significant donation into the education trust. That money went on to support 50 girls in rural communities through 2 full years of school. The series, once released, struck a chord. Women looked into the camera and said, "I saw myself in her story." Media outlets started reaching out. I declined them all. "I'm not much of a talker," I said. "I'd probably say something clumsy. But the truth, being misunderstood is part of being someone who speaks at all. I didn't want to be anyone's symbol. I just didn't want to drown anymore. So I kept living, traveling, documenting, donating." Heather reached out a few times after that. Sometimes a call. Sometimes knocking on the door. Once, she stood outside sobbing like she'd lost her favorite toy. She said she was sorry, that she wanted to start over. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked her in the eyes and said, "You want to start again? Fine. First pay off your credit cards. Work hard. Stop selling your future to keep up with strangers. When you do that, come find me. I'll recognize you. But don't worry about me. When I can't walk anymore, I'll check myself into a care home. You won't need to lift a finger." She lowered her head and said nothing. I don't know if she heard me, and I'm not waiting to find out. Her path is hers to walk. Mine still stretches far ahead. On my 60th birthday, I stood before the Great Sphinx of Giza, a figure I'd only ever seen in postcards and travel ads. And honestly, in that moment, standing there beneath its shadow, my first thought was, so this is it, just another statue. Another monument with a past and a polished surface. Like the others I'd seen grand, but no longer sacred. That's when it hit me. Life isn't about finding the ultimate icon. It's about passing through each phase. Until one day, you can quietly turn around and say, "I don't regret a thing." After returning from Egypt, I parked my car along the familiar driveway in front of my house. The last traces of daylight had just slipped beneath the horizon. Pittsburgh's night wrapped softly around me. Quiet, steady, the glow of a street lamp spilling across my windshield in a gentle, unthreatening halo. I turned off the engine, unbuckled my seatbelt, and sat still for a while. I didn't rush to open the door. This past year, I'd seen mountaintops and oceans, ruins and rivers. But more than anything, I had finally seen people for who they were. I'd lost a well-behaved daughter, but I found someone far more important, my truest self. And I finally understood what a complete life really looks like. It's not about having the perfect child, not about an unbreakable marriage, or a house filled with admiration and applause. It's about this, being able, one day, to look into the mirror, meet your own eyes, and say gently, "You did well." Then, set down the burdens you once clung to so tightly, and step into tomorrow with peace in your heart.